Hidden beneath the shifting sands of Peru's coastal desert lies one of humanity's most perplexing mysteries. Imagine standing on a barren plateau, the wind whipping across endless stretches of red earth, and suddenly realizing you're walking across the canvas of an ancient civilization. But this isn't just any artwork. These are messages drawn so large they can only be fully seen from the sky, created by people who lived over 1,500 years ago, long before the invention of flight. Tonight, we descend into the enigma of the Nazca lines, where archaeology meets the impossible, where ancient hands carved secrets into the earth that we're only beginning to understand. Picture this. You're flying over the Nazca Desert in southern Peru, peering down through the aircraft window at what appears to be an endless expanse of rust-colored emptiness. The landscape below looks lifeless, almost alien. But then your pilot banks left, and suddenly the earth transforms. Lines appear, not random scratches, but deliberate, purposeful markings stretching across the desert floor like a massive outdoor gallery. Some lines run perfectly straight for miles, others curve into spirals, and still others form the unmistakable shapes of animals, plants, and geometric figures. A hummingbird with wings spread wide, nearly 300 feet from tip to tip. A spider so precisely drawn that every leg extends in perfect proportion. A monkey with a spiraling tail that seems to dance across the desert. These are the Nazca lines, and they represent one of the most breathtaking and baffling achievements in human history. What makes these geoglyphs truly extraordinary isn't just their size or their precision, it's their impossibility. Created between 500 BCE and 500 CE by the Nazca people, these massive designs were made by removing the dark, iron oxide-coated pebbles from the desert surface, revealing the lighter-colored earth beneath. The technique sounds simple, but the execution is mind-bending. How do you create a perfectly proportioned hummingbird that spans 3 football fields when you can't see the overall design from ground level? How do you ensure that lines remain straight across miles of desert terrain without modern surveying equipment? And perhaps most haunting of all, why would an ancient civilization invest countless hours creating art that they themselves could never fully appreciate? The Nazca lines aren't just impressive because of their scale, they're remarkable because of their preservation. In most parts of the world, drawings made on the ground would disappear within decades, washed away by rain, covered by vegetation, or eroded by wind. But the Nazca Desert is one of the driest places on Earth, receiving less than 20 minutes of rainfall per year. This extreme aridity, combined with the minimal wind and stable climate of the region, has allowed these ancient messages to survive virtually unchanged for over 2,000 years. The lines are typically only 4 to 6 inches deep, yet they remain as clear today as when they were first carved into the earth. It's as if time itself has been suspended in this corner of Peru. But who were the people behind these mysterious creations? The Nazca civilization flourished along Peru's southern coast during a time when much of the world was still emerging from the shadows of antiquity. They were master engineers who built sophisticated irrigation systems, skilled potters who created ceramics of stunning beauty, and accomplished astronomers who tracked the movements of celestial bodies with remarkable precision. Their society was complex and hierarchical, centered around powerful priests who held sway over both spiritual and temporal matters. Yet for all their achievements, the Nazca left behind no written language, no detailed records of their beliefs or intentions. Their story exists only in fragments, in pottery shards and textile remnants, in the ruins of their ceremonial center at Kawachi, and most mysteriously, in the lines they carved into the desert floor. The modern world first became aware of the Nazca lines in the 1920s, when commercial aviation began crossing the Peruvian desert. Pilots flying between Lima and Arequipa started reporting strange markings visible from the air, geometric patterns and animal figures that seemed to have been deliberately placed across the landscape. But it wasn't until 1939 that these mysterious lines captured global attention, when American historian Paul Kosok was flying over the region and noticed that he was observing one of the lines precisely at sunset on the winter solstice. This celestial alignment sparked decades of research and debate about the true purpose of the Nazca lines. Enter Maria Reiche, the German mathematician who would dedicate her life to studying and protecting these ancient wonders. Arriving in Peru in 1940, Reiche became so captivated by the lines that she spent the next 50 years mapping, measuring, and theorizing about their purpose. She lived in a simple house near the lines, walking the desert with a ladder and measuring tape, painstakingly recording every detail. Reiche believed the lines functioned as a massive astronomical calendar, with different figures and lines marking the positions of stars, planets, and celestial events. She called the Nazca Desert the largest astronomy book in the world, and her passion for the lines earned her the nickname Lady of the Lines. Yet even after decades of study, the Nazca lines continue to guard their secrets jealously. Recent technological advances have only deepened the mystery. In 2024, researchers using artificial intelligence and drone technology discovered over 300 new geoglyphs in just 6 months, nearly doubling the known number of Nazca lines. Among these new discoveries is perhaps the most intriguing figure yet found: a 72-foot-long killer whale holding what appears to be a knife. This discovery is particularly significant because it connects directly to Nazca pottery designs, where orcas are depicted performing ritual sacrifices, suggesting these massive ground drawings may have been part of elaborate ceremonial practices. The whale with a knife isn't just an artistic curiosity, it's a window into the complex spiritual world of the Nazca people. These ancient Peruvians lived in one of the world's most challenging environments, where survival depended on understanding and respecting the delicate balance between land and sea, between the life-giving waters of distant mountains and the harsh reality of desert existence. Their art consistently features powerful animals from both land and ocean, suggesting a worldview that saw all of nature as interconnected and sacred. The killer whale, despite being a creature of the sea, appears prominently in Nazca iconography, representing perhaps the ultimate predator, a being capable of controlling life and death. But the mystery deepens when we consider the sheer number and variety of the lines. Over 700 individual geoglyphs have now been identified, ranging from simple geometric shapes to complex animal figures to mysterious humanoid forms. Some lines stretch for miles in perfectly straight trajectories, while others form intricate spirals and trapezoids. The famous animal figures, the hummingbird, the spider, the monkey, represent only a fraction of the total. Many of the lines seem to point towards specific locations on the horizon, possibly marking the rising or setting of important stars or the sun at crucial times of the year. What's particularly fascinating is how these discoveries continue to challenge our understanding of ancient capabilities. The precision required to create these massive figures without aerial perspective suggests a level of mathematical and engineering sophistication that we're only beginning to appreciate. Some researchers have proposed that the Nazca people used scaled-down models and grid systems to transfer their designs to the massive desert canvas. Others suggest they may have used primitive hot air balloons to view their work from above, though no archaeological evidence supports this theory. The truth is, We simply don't know how they achieved such geometric perfection on such an enormous scale. As we stand at the threshold of this investigation, one thing becomes clear. The Nazca lines aren't just ancient artwork or astronomical instruments or religious symbols. They're all of these things, and more. They represent a civilization's attempt to communicate across the vastness of time, to leave messages that would endure long after their creators had returned to dust. Whether those messages were intended for their gods, their descendants, or beings yet unknown, we may never fully understand. But in our quest to decode these ancient communications, we're not just learning about the Nazca people. We're discovering something profound about the human need to create meaning, to reach beyond the limitations of our brief existence, and to leave something beautiful and mysterious for future generations to ponder. The desert keeps its secrets well, but technology, patience, and human curiosity are slowly coaxing them from the sand. Each new discovery brings us closer to understanding not just what the Nazca lines are, but why they matter. In a world that often feels disconnected from the past, these ancient messages remind us that the human drive to create, to communicate, and to touch the infinite is as old as civilization itself. Now let's explore the deeper mysteries that lie hidden within the landscape of Peru, where ancient civilizations left behind messages etched not in stone or gold, but in the earth itself. These are the Nazca lines, but they represent only one piece of a vast puzzle that stretches across the desert plateaus of southern Peru. Here, in a region so arid that it receives barely 20 minutes of rainfall each year, we find ourselves confronting evidence of a sophisticated understanding that challenges everything we thought we knew about pre-Columbian cultures. The recent breakthrough discoveries of 2024 have fundamentally altered our understanding of the scope and complexity of these ancient geoglyphs. When researchers deployed artificial intelligence and drone technology to scan the Nazca Desert, they weren't simply looking for more of the same. They were seeking answers to questions that had puzzled archaeologists for decades. What they found was staggering. In just 6 months, this AI-trained system identified an additional 303 drawings, nearly doubling the total number of known geoglyphs. To put this in perspective, what once took human researchers 3 to 4 years to accomplish could now be achieved in mere days. The AI model proved to be 21 times faster at perceiving these ancient works than human eyes alone. But speed of discovery was not the only revelation. Among these newly identified geoglyphs emerged patterns and themes that spoke to a civilization far more complex and symbolically sophisticated than previously understood. The most striking of these discoveries was a 72-foot-long killer whale depicted holding a knife. This wasn't merely artistic expression, it was theological documentation. The imagery directly connected to pottery designs found at Nazca archaeological sites, revealing a consistent symbolic language that spanned multiple forms of media and cultural expression. The killer whale with a knife represents something profound about Nazca cosmology and religious practice. According to pottery from the Nazca period, orcas were depicted cutting off human heads, positioning these marine creatures as beings that carried out human sacrifice. This wasn't random violence or artistic license. It was spiritual architecture. The Nazca people believed that killer whales served as supernatural beings capable of determining life and death, powerful deities operating in the liminal space between the earthly and divine realms. This discovery forces us to reconsider the entire framework of Nazca society. We're not looking at a simple agricultural civilization that happened to create large drawings in the desert. We're examining a culture that develops sophisticated theological concepts, complex ritual practices, and an intricate understanding of the relationship between the natural world and spiritual forces. The precision required to create these geoglyphs, combined with their symbolic depth, suggests a level of social organization and intellectual development that rivals any civilization of its time period. The water cult theory provides crucial context for understanding these discoveries. Johann Reinhardt's groundbreaking research in 1985 demonstrated that worship of mountains and water sources dominated Nazca religion and economy from ancient times through the historical period. In a region that receives virtually no rainfall, water wasn't just precious, it was sacred. The lines and figures were integrated into religious practices involving the worship of deities associated with water availability, which directly related to agricultural success and survival itself. The geoglyphs served as sacred paths leading to places where these water deities could be worshipped. The figures were symbols representing animals and objects meant to invoke divine aid in supplying water. This wasn't abstract spirituality, it was survival theology. Every line drawn in the desert was a prayer made manifest, a plea for the rains that would determine whether crops would grow and communities would thrive or perish. When we examine the broader context of Nazca civilization, we see how these discoveries fit into a sophisticated cultural framework. The Nazca people flourished between 200 BCE and 600 CE, developing advanced agricultural techniques, including underground aqueducts called puquios, many of which still function today. Their society was hierarchical, but allowed for considerable artistic and cultural expression across different social levels. They were not isolated primitives creating mysterious drawings. They were accomplished engineers, artists, and theologians working within a complex social and spiritual system. The religious center at Cahuachi provides additional insight into this complexity. This massive ceremonial complex, covering some 370 acres and dominated by a central pyramid and plaza, served as the spiritual and social heart of Nazca civilization. People from across the region would gather here for important ceremonies, religious festivals, and community events. The scale and sophistication of Cahuachi demonstrates that the Nazca people were capable of organizing large-scale construction projects and coordinating complex social gatherings. The trophy head ritual adds another layer to our understanding of Nazca spiritual practices. The Nazca used severed heads in various religious rituals, and these appear frequently as motifs in ceramic iconography. Over 150 trophy heads have been discovered, each modified with a hole in the forehead for rope attachment, presumably for display or carrying purposes. This practice reveals the complex relationship between warfare, ritual, and spiritual beliefs in Nazca society, suggesting that these heads served as offerings to deities or symbols of power and protection. But perhaps the most remarkable aspect of recent discoveries is how they demonstrate the interconnected nature of Nazca cultural expression. The symbols found in the geoglyphs appear on pottery, in architectural elements, and in burial goods. This consistency suggests that we're not looking at random artistic expression, but at a coherent symbolic language that permeated all aspects of Nazca society. The killer whale with a knife isn't an isolated image. It's part of a comprehensive theological and artistic system that governed how the Nazca people understood their relationship with the natural and supernatural worlds. The astronomical alignments of some geoglyphs add yet another dimension to this complexity. While the calendar theory proposed by Maria Ricci hasn't been definitively proven, there's clear evidence that some lines and figures were designed with celestial observations in mind. This suggests that the Nazca people possess sophisticated astronomical knowledge and incorporated it into their religious and artistic practices. As we stand at the edge of these discoveries, we must confront the humbling reality that we've only begun to understand the depth and sophistication of Nazca civilization. The AI-assisted discoveries of 2024 represent not an ending, but a beginning. With only a fraction of the Nazca Desert thoroughly surveyed, and with technology continuing to evolve, we can expect many more revelations in the years to come. These ancient messages from Peru challenge us to expand our understanding of pre-Columbian civilizations. The Nazca lines aren't curiosities or mysteries without solution. They are documents of a sophisticated culture that developed complex theological concepts, advanced engineering techniques, and artistic traditions that rival anything produced in the ancient world. They speak to us across the centuries, not in words we can easily translate, but in symbols and structures that reveal the profound human capacity for meaning-making, community organization, and spiritual expression. In the end, the Nazca lines force us to confront our own assumptions about the past and our place within the long arc of human civilization. These desert drawings remind us that intelligence, creativity, and spiritual sophistication are not recent human achievements, but ancient capabilities that have expressed themselves in countless ways across countless cultures. The messages from ancient Peru continue to reveal themselves, and as they do, they expand our understanding not just of the Nazca people, but of the remarkable diversity and depth of human civilization itself. Now that we've explored the profound mysteries of the Nazca lines, from their astronomical alignments to their sacred water rituals, we arrive at one of the most fascinating and troubling chapters in their story: the gradual abandonment of these magnificent geoglyphs and the civilization that created them. The decline of Nazca culture wasn't sudden or dramatic, like the collapse of other ancient civilizations. Instead, it was a slow, almost imperceptible fading that took place over several centuries, beginning around 600 CE and continuing until approximately 1000 CE. This gradual abandonment has puzzled archaeologists for decades, because unlike other civilizations that left clear evidence of conquest, natural disaster, or internal strife, the Nazca simply seemed to stop. The first signs of change appeared in the artistic record. The elaborate polychrome pottery that had defined Nazca craftsmanship for centuries began to simplify. The vibrant depictions of supernatural beings, the intricate geometric patterns, the masterful representations of flora and fauna, all of these started to give way to more basic, utilitarian designs. It was as if the creative spirit that had driven the Nazca to create some of the world's most spectacular art was slowly dimming. Archaeological evidence suggests that around 650 CE, the construction of new geoglyphs dramatically decreased. The great lines and figures that had been continuously created and maintained for over 1,000 years were no longer being added to the desert canvas. More tellingly, existing lines began to show signs of neglect. Without regular maintenance to clear away wind-blown debris and restore the contrast between the dark desert surface and lighter subsurface, many geoglyphs started to fade back into the landscape. The religious center of Cahuachi, which had served as the spiritual heart of Nazca civilization for centuries, shows clear evidence of deliberate abandonment around this same period. Rather than being destroyed by conquest or natural disaster, the massive ceremonial complex appears to have been carefully decommissioned. Valuable objects were removed, important structures were ritually killed through symbolic destruction, and the site was gradually covered with sand and debris, not by neglect, but through intentional burial. This pattern of deliberate abandonment suggests that the decline of Nazca culture wasn't forced upon them by external circumstances, but was instead a conscious choice made by the people themselves. But why would a civilization voluntarily abandon traditions that had sustained them for over a millennium? Climate data provides one crucial piece of the puzzle. Paleoclimatic studies reveal that the Nazca region experienced a series of severe droughts during the 6th and 7th centuries CE. These weren't the typical dry periods that the Nazca had weathered before, but extended droughts that lasted for decades. The elaborate Puquio system, that had allowed the Nazca to thrive in one of the world's most arid environments began to fail as water tables dropped and underground channels dried up. For a civilization whose entire cosmology was built around water worship and the sacred relationship between heaven and earth, these prolonged droughts would have represented more than just practical challenges. They would have constituted a spiritual crisis. If the geoglyphs were indeed created to communicate with the gods and ensure the continuation of water and fertility, then the failure of the rains despite centuries of devotion would have called into question the very foundations of Nazca belief. Some scholars suggest that this crisis of faith led to fundamental changes in Nazca religious practices. Evidence from late Nazca sites shows an increasing emphasis on mountain worship rather than the traditional focus on desert geoglyphs. New ceremonial sites began appearing in the foothills of the Andes, where water sources were more reliable and where different rituals could be performed to appeal to different deities. The demographic evidence tells a story of gradual dispersal rather than sudden collapse. Settlement patterns from the late Nazca period show people moving away from the traditional centers along the Nazca and Ica river valleys. Some groups migrated toward the coast, where marine resources could supplement failing agricultural yields. Others moved inland toward the Andean foothills, where highland farming techniques could be employed. Still others appear to have integrated with neighboring cultures, carrying Nazca artistic and technological traditions into new contexts. This dispersal helps explain why Nazca influence can be traced in later Andean cultures, even after the classic Nazca civilization had ended. Elements of Nazca iconography, pottery styles, and textile techniques appear in the art of subsequent cultures throughout the region. The knowledge wasn't lost. It was transformed and incorporated into new cultural expressions. Perhaps most poignantly, there's evidence that the final generations of Nazca people made deliberate efforts to preserve their most sacred sites. Many geoglyphs show signs of careful maintenance right up until the moment of abandonment, suggesting that even as their civilization was ending, the Nazca continued to honor their ancestors' greatest achievements. The abandonment of the Nazca lines and the civilization that created them represents one of archaeology's most profound mysteries. Unlike the dramatic collapses that befell other ancient civilizations, the Nazca fade into history with a whisper rather than a bang. Their story reminds us that cultures, like individuals, can make conscious choices about their own endings, choosing transformation over destruction, dispersal over defeat. Today, as we stand in the desert, looking up at aircraft that reveal the full majesty of these ancient geoglyphs, we're witnessing not just the artistic achievements of a lost civilization, but the final act of a people who chose to write their conclusion on their own terms. The Nazca lines endure not as monuments to conquest or catastrophe, but as testaments to a culture that understood something profound about the relationship between permanence and change, between human ambition and cosmic forces, between the desire to be remembered and the wisdom to know when to let go. When you walk through the ancient ruins of Kawachi, you're not just stepping on broken stones and weathered earth. You're standing at the heart of one of history's most enigmatic civilizations, a place where the sacred and mysterious converged in ways that continue to baffle researchers today. Because Kawachi wasn't just a city, it was a stage, a cosmic theater where the Nazca people performed rituals so profound, so intricate, that their echoes still whisper across the desert winds nearly 2,000 years later. Imagine a sprawling complex of pyramids and plazas stretching across 370 acres of sacred ground. Picture thousands of pilgrims arriving from across the Nazca territories, their footsteps creating paths that would later become part of the great line system we marvel at today. This was Kawachi during its golden age, between 400 BCE and 400 CE, not just the ceremonial capital of the Nazca civilization, but what archaeologists now call the largest adobe city in the ancient world. But here's what makes Cahuachi truly extraordinary. Unlike other ancient cities built for the living, Cahuachi was built for the dead, or more precisely, for the space between life and death, where ancestors could speak to the living, where the gods could be summoned through ritual, and where the very landscape could be transformed into a canvas for cosmic communication. The Nazca people understood something that we're only beginning to grasp today. They knew that death wasn't an ending, but a transformation, a passage into a parallel world where ancestors became intermediaries between the realm of the living and the divine. And Cahuachi was their embassy to that other world, a place where the boundaries between dimensions grew thin enough for messages to pass through. Let's walk through this sacred landscape together. The great temple rises before us, a 20-meter-high mound that dominates the complex, like a stepped mountain reaching toward the sky. But this wasn't built from scratch. The Nazca people took natural hills, these sacred huacas, and transformed them. They carved terraces into the slopes, built chambers within the earth, and created an architecture that worked with the landscape rather than against it. Archaeological excavations have revealed something remarkable about these structures. They weren't just temples, they were acoustic instruments. The chambers within the pyramids amplify sound in specific ways. Whispers become voices. Drums become thunder. And when the desert wind moves through the carefully designed openings, the entire complex begins to sing. A low, haunting harmony that seems to emerge from the earth itself. Dr. Helene Silverman, who led major excavations at Cahuachi, describes walking through these ruins at dawn. The way the sound carries. The way shadows fall across the ceremonial plazas. She talks about feeling the presence of something ancient, something that still inhabits this place. Because Cahuachi wasn't abandoned in the way we think of abandonment. It was ritually closed, ceremonially sealed, like a sacred book whose pages were meant to be read only by the wind and the stars. The evidence of what happened here is written in the artifacts. Hundreds of trophy heads, carefully prepared and modified. Elaborate textiles that took months to weave, then buried as offerings. Ceramic vessels painted with images of flying shamans, supernatural beings with both human and animal features. And everywhere, the imagery of transformation. Beings changing from human to bird, from earthbound to airborne, from mortal to divine. But the most intriguing discoveries are the underground chambers. Networks of tunnels and rooms that honeycomb the earth beneath Cahuachi. Some contain mummified remains. Others hold caches of exotic goods, shells from the coast, feathers from the jungle, metals from the mountains. These chambers tell us that Cahuachi was connected to trade networks that spanned the entire continent. But more than that, they suggest a civilization that thought in 3 dimensions, that understood the sacred geography of not just the surface world, but the underworld as well. Recent ground-penetrating radar has revealed that we've only excavated a fraction of what lies beneath Cahuachi. There are structures down there that we haven't even begun to explore. Chambers that may contain the keys to understanding not just Nazca civilization, but the entire mystery of the lines themselves. Because here's what's becoming increasingly clear. The lines, the geoglyphs, the animal figures, they weren't created in isolation. They were part of a vast ceremonial landscape with Cahuachi at its heart. Think about it this way. If the Nazca lines are messages, then Cahuachi was the post office. If the lines are prayers, then Cahuachi was the cathedral. If the lines are a map, then Cahuachi was the compass pointing toward true north, toward the realm of the ancestors, toward the cosmic order that governed everything. The ritual calendar discovered at Cahuachi shows us how this worked. Specific ceremonies corresponded to astronomical events, the rising of certain constellations, the solstices and equinoxes, times when the barrier between worlds grew thin and communication with the divine became possible. And during these ceremonies, processions would move out from Cahuachi along the sacred lines, carrying offerings, performing dances, singing songs that haven't been heard for over 1,000 years. But perhaps the most profound discovery at Cahuachi is this. The site shows evidence of deliberate, careful abandonment. Around 400 CE, the Nazca people didn't flee this place, they closed it. Ceremonially, reverently, with the same care they had used to build it. Important artifacts were buried, sacred spaces were sealed, and the entire complex was gradually allowed to return to the desert, as if the work that needed to be done here was complete. What was that work? What cosmic project required centuries of effort, thousands of participants, and the creation of the world's largest collection of ground drawings? The evidence suggests it was nothing less than an attempt to create a permanent communication system with the realm of the ancestors, a way to ensure that the wisdom of the dead could continue to guide the living. A technology of transcendence built not with metal and silicon, but with stone and sand and the movements of the human body across sacred ground. And here's the remarkable thing. It may have worked, because even today, even after 1,500 years of silence, Cahuachi still speaks to those who know how to listen. The shadows still fall in patterns that mark astronomical events. The chambers still amplify sound in ways that make whispers carry impossible distances. And somewhere in the network of lines that radiate out from this place, like spokes from a wheel, the messages of the Nazca people continue their journey toward the stars. As we stand here in this ancient place, surrounded by the ruins of humanity's most ambitious attempt to speak with the cosmos, we have to ask ourselves, what messages are we sending? What lines are we drawing across our own landscape? And when future archaeologists examine the remains of our civilization, will they find evidence of the same profound longing that drove the Nazca people to transform an entire desert into a canvas for their prayers? The wind picks up, carrying sand across the weathered stones of Cahuachi. And for just a moment, if you listen carefully, you might hear it. The echo of drums that haven't sounded for centuries. The whisper of voices calling out to ancestors whose names we've forgotten. The sound of a civilization that refused to accept that death was the end of communication, that built their greatest monuments not for themselves, but for the conversations they hoped to have with eternity. This is Cahuachi. This is where the mystery of the Nazca lines begins and ends. And this is where we begin to understand that some messages are too important to trust to words alone. Sometimes you have to write them across the face of the earth itself in letters large enough for the gods to read. In recent years, researchers have made remarkable breakthroughs using cutting-edge technology to unveil new secrets hidden within the Nazca Desert. Advanced imaging techniques, artificial intelligence, and drone surveys have revolutionized our approach to studying these ancient lines. Teams of international archaeologists have discovered over 300 new geoglyphs, nearly doubling the known number of these mysterious formations. What makes this achievement even more extraordinary is the speed at which these discoveries occurred. Using AI-trained systems, researchers accomplished in mere months what previously took years of painstaking ground surveys. Among the most fascinating recent discoveries is a particularly striking geoglyph that has captured researchers' attention worldwide. This 72-foot-long figure depicts what appears to be a killer whale grasping a knife in its appendage. The imagery is both haunting and revealing, providing crucial insights into the religious and ceremonial practices of the Nazca culture. This discovery connects directly to pottery designs found at Nazca archaeological sites, suggesting a consistent symbolic language that crossed different artistic mediums. The presence of weapons in the hands of killer whales indicates the profound spiritual significance these marine creatures held in Nazca cosmology, likely representing powerful deities or supernatural beings capable of determining life and death. The killer whale with knife discovery has opened new avenues of understanding regarding Nazca religious beliefs and ritual practices. Scholars have noted that similar imagery appears on ceremonial pottery from the same period, where orcas are depicted carrying knives and performing what appear to be ritualistic acts. This consistency across different art forms suggests that these weren't random artistic choices, but rather fundamental elements of Nazca mythology and spiritual practice. The killer whale, despite being a marine creature in a desert civilization, clearly held immense symbolic power in their belief system. These new discoveries have also shed light on the sophisticated astronomical knowledge possessed by the Nazca people. Many of the recently identified geoglyphs align with celestial events, suggesting that the lines served multiple purposes beyond their spiritual significance. The precision with which these alignments were created demonstrates a deep understanding of astronomical cycles and their relationship to agricultural and ceremonial calendars. This astronomical component adds another layer to our understanding of Nazca civilization, revealing a people who were not only skilled artists and engineers, but also accomplished astronomers. The water cult theory has gained renewed support through these recent discoveries. Many of the newly identified geoglyphs appear to be related to water symbolism and agricultural ceremonies. Given the incredible aridity of the Nazca Desert, which receives only about 20 minutes of rainfall per year, water worship would have been central to survival. The lines and figures likely served as sacred pathways leading to places where water deities could be worshipped, with the imagery representing animals and objects meant to invoke divine aid in supplying this precious resource. The construction methods revealed through modern analysis continue to amaze researchers. The Nazca people accomplished these monumental works using surprisingly simple yet effective techniques. They removed the dark, weathered stones from the desert surface, revealing the lighter-colored earth beneath. Using wooden stakes, string, and basic tools, they achieved remarkable accuracy across vast distances. The fact that such precision could be accomplished without aerial assistance speaks to the sophisticated planning and organizational capabilities of Nazca society. The preservation of these lines through centuries remains one of the most remarkable aspects of the entire phenomenon. The unique environmental conditions of the Nazca Desert provide an ideal setting for preservation. The region's minimal rainfall prevents erosion, while the contrast between the dark surface stones and lighter subsoil beneath ensures visibility. After absorbing heat during the day, the stones create a protective cushion of hot air that shields them from wind damage. Additionally, the soil contains natural compounds that, when cooled by morning mist, create a protective layer that has helped these ancient artworks survive for over 2,000 years. Modern technological analysis has revealed new details about the social organization required to create these geoglyphs. The scale and precision of the work suggest a highly coordinated society with sophisticated leadership structures. The ability to plan and execute such massive projects indicates not only advanced engineering knowledge, but also complex social hierarchies capable of organizing large-scale community efforts. This challenges earlier assumptions about the organizational capabilities of pre-Columbian South American civilizations. The recent discoveries have also provided new insights into the timeline of Nazca line construction. Rather than being created all at once, the evidence suggests these geoglyphs were constructed over several centuries, with different periods showing distinct artistic styles and symbolic preferences. This extended timeline reveals a civilization that maintained consistent cultural practices and beliefs across many generations, suggesting remarkable social stability and continuity. The international collaboration that has made these discoveries possible represents a new era in archaeological research. Teams from Japan, Peru, Germany, and other nations have combined their expertise with advanced technology to unlock secrets that remained hidden for centuries. This collaborative approach has not only accelerated the pace of discovery, but also brought diverse perspectives to interpreting the findings. As we continue to uncover new geoglyphs and analyze existing ones with ever more sophisticated tools, the Nazca lines reveal themselves to be far more complex and significant than previously imagined. They represent not just artistic achievement, but a window into a sophisticated civilization that developed remarkable solutions to the challenges of desert life. These ancient messages from Peru continue to speak across the centuries, offering insights into human creativity, spiritual belief, and the eternal human desire to leave lasting marks upon the world. The ongoing research into the Nazca lines demonstrates how modern technology can breathe new life into ancient mysteries. Each new discovery adds another piece to the puzzle, gradually revealing the full scope of this remarkable civilization's achievements and the profound meaning embedded in their desert messages. As we near the conclusion of our exploration into the hidden truths of the Nazca lines, we find ourselves standing at the threshold of understanding not just what these ancient Peruvians accomplished, but why their achievements continue to resonate so powerfully across millennia. The discoveries we've examined, from the revolutionary AI-assisted identification of over 300 new geoglyphs to the haunting imagery of the killer whale wielding a knife, reveal a civilization far more sophisticated and spiritually complex than previously imagined. The recent technological breakthroughs have fundamentally transformed our approach to studying the Nazca lines. What once required years of painstaking ground surveys can now be accomplished in days through AI algorithms trained to recognize the subtle patterns that escaped human observation for centuries. This acceleration in discovery is not merely about quantity, it's about quality of understanding. Each new geoglyph identified adds another piece to the vast puzzle of Nazca cosmology, another voice to their silent conversation with the gods. The killer whale with a knife, in particular, stands as perhaps the most visceral representation of Nazca religious beliefs yet discovered. This 72-foot testament to ritualistic power connects directly to pottery designs found throughout Nazca archaeological sites, creating a consistent symbolic language that spans both monumental earthworks and intimate domestic objects. The imagery suggests that the Nazca viewed killer whales not merely as marine predators, but as supernatural executioners, divine agents capable of determining life and death through ritual sacrifice. But beyond the individual discoveries lies a more profound revelation about the nature of the Nazca civilization itself. These were not simply agricultural communities that occasionally arranged stones in patterns. They were master engineers who understood hydrology so thoroughly they created underground aqueduct systems that still function today. They were astronomers who aligned their monuments with celestial events. They were artists who painted the desert floor with images so vast they could only be fully appreciated from the sky. Most remarkably, they were spiritual architects who transformed an entire landscape into a sacred theatre where the divine and earthly realms could intersect. The evidence points to a society where every aspect of life was infused with religious significance. The positioning of geoglyphs along ancient footpaths suggests these were not merely artistic expressions, but functional elements of ritual journeys. Pilgrims would have walked these paths, perhaps for days or weeks, encountering different animal spirits and geometric forms that told the story of their cosmology. The spider, associated with water divination, the hummingbird, representing fertility and life force, the monkey, possibly symbolizing the mediator between earthly and celestial realms. Each image was a chapter in a sacred narrative written across the landscape. The environmental context makes their achievements even more extraordinary. The Nazca Desert receives virtually no rainfall, making it one of the most arid places on Earth. Yet this very aridity, combined with the unique geological conditions, has preserved their messages for over 2 millennia. The Nazca understood their environment so intimately that they turned its challenges into advantages, using the stable climate to create permanent monuments and the mineral composition of the soil to ensure their lines would endure. Perhaps most intriguingly, the Nazca civilization challenges our understanding of technological versus spiritual advancement. While they lacked metal tools, wheeled vehicles, and written language as we understand it, they achieved feats of planning and execution that rival modern engineering projects. The creation of the Nazca lines required not just individual skill, but coordinated community effort spanning generations. This suggests sophisticated social organization, shared vision, and the kind of long-term thinking that modern societies often struggle to achieve. The ceremonial complex at Cahuachi reinforces this picture of spiritual sophistication. As the largest adobe city in the ancient world, it served as the beating heart of Nazca religious life. Here, people from across the region would gather for festivals, ceremonies, and communal rituals that reinforced their shared cosmology. The fact that Cahuachi was eventually abandoned deliberately, with many structures carefully buried rather than simply left to decay, speaks to a civilization that understood endings as well as beginnings, that could make collective decisions about when chapters of their story should close. The mystery of the Nazca line's ultimate purpose may never be fully resolved, and perhaps that's as it should be. The water cult theory, astronomical calendar hypothesis, and shamanic pathway explanations all contain elements of truth because the Nazca lines were likely multifunctional, serving simultaneously as astronomical markers, ritual pathways, water ceremony sites, and messages to the gods. This multiplicity of purpose reflects a worldview where spiritual, practical, and scientific understanding were not separate domains, but integrated aspects of a unified cosmic vision. The Nazca legacy extends far beyond their physical monuments. They demonstrate that human creativity and spiritual aspiration can transcend material limitations. Working with simple tools and profound vision, they created something that speaks to us across vast stretches of time and cultural difference. Their lines remind us that the human impulse to create meaning, to reach beyond the immediate and tangible, to leave messages for future generations, is one of our species' most defining characteristics. As we conclude our journey through the mysteries of the Nazca lines, we're left with more than just archaeological knowledge. We're confronted with questions about our own relationship to the landscape, our own spiritual practices, our own legacy. In an age of digital communication and virtual reality, the Nazca lines remind us of the power of physical presence, of marking the earth itself with our deepest beliefs and highest aspirations. The recent discoveries, facilitated by artificial intelligence and drone technology, create a beautiful symmetry. Modern technology revealing ancient wisdom, digital algorithms uncovering analog art. It suggests that each generation brings new tools to the task of understanding those who came before, and that the conversation between past and present is ongoing, dynamic, constantly evolving. The Nazca achieved a form of immortality that few civilizations have managed. Their voices, silent for over 1,000 years, continue to speak through the lines they etched into the desert floor. Each new discovery adds volume to their whispered testimony about the human capacity for wonder, for transformation, for reaching beyond the boundaries of the possible. In studying the Nazca lines, we study ourselves, our potential, our limitations, our eternal quest to understand our place in the cosmic order. In the end, the Nazca lines are more than archaeological artifacts or tourist destinations. They are proof that humans have always been capable of thinking beyond themselves, of creating beauty and meaning that transcends individual lifespans. of believing in something greater than what the eye can see. They remind us that the landscape itself can be a canvas, that faith can move not just mountains, but entire civilizations to acts of extraordinary creativity and devotion. As the wind continues to blow across the Nazca Desert, as the sun continues to rise and set over these ancient lines, as new technologies continue to reveal new secrets, the conversation between the Nazca people and all who encounter their work continues. They have achieved what every artist, every spiritual seeker, every human being hopes for. They have created something that endures, something that speaks across time, something that transforms those who truly see it. The Nazca lines stand as testament to the proposition that humans are not merely biological organisms struggling for survival, but conscious beings capable of inscribing meaning onto the world itself. In their silent eloquence, in their patient endurance, in their continuing ability to inspire wonder and provoke questions, they offer us perhaps the most important message of all, that the human spirit, properly directed and collectively focused, can create works that touch the eternal. As we reach the end of our journey through the mysteries of the Nazca lines, we find ourselves not with answers, but with something far more profound: an appreciation for the enduring power of human expression across time. These ancient geoglyphs, carved into the desert floor over 1,500 years ago, continue to speak to us today, their voices carried not through words, but through the sheer audacity of their creation. The recent discoveries using artificial intelligence and drone technology have nearly doubled our known catalogue of these remarkable figures, revealing everything from intricate humanoid forms to that haunting 72-foot killer whale brandishing a knife. Each new find adds another layer to the complex tapestry of Nazca culture, yet paradoxically, the more we discover, the deeper the mystery becomes. It's as if the ancient creators knew that true art lies not in providing easy answers, but in posing eternal questions. What strikes me most profoundly about the Nazca lines is how they challenge our modern assumptions about communication and permanence. In our digital age, where messages flash across screens in milliseconds and disappear just as quickly, here we have a civilization that chose to write their story in the most permanent medium they could imagine, the Earth itself. They transformed an entire landscape into a canvas, creating art so massive it could only be fully appreciated from the heavens. This choice reveals something fundamental about the Nazca worldview. They weren't creating art for immediate consumption or social media likes. They were crafting messages for the gods, for the cosmos, for eternity itself. The very scale of these works suggests a people who thought in geological time, who understood that true significance often requires a perspective far grander than our everyday human scale. The astronomical alignments embedded within many of the lines remind us that the Nazca were sophisticated observers of the natural world. They understood the rhythms of the seasons, the movement of celestial bodies, the delicate balance between earth and sky that governed their agricultural survival, their calendar system, their understanding of solstices and equinoxes, their ability to predict celestial events. All of this knowledge was woven into the very fabric of their geoglyphs. But perhaps most remarkable is how the Nazca lines embody the intersection of the practical and the spiritual. These weren't merely artistic expressions or religious symbols. They were both simultaneously. The straight lines likely served as ceremonial walkways, connecting sacred sites across vast distances. The animal figures may have been offerings to ensure rainfall and agricultural abundance. The geometric patterns could have functioned as astronomical instruments, while also serving as ritual spaces for community gatherings. This integration of function and meaning, of practical necessity and spiritual expression, offers us a model for how human societies can create works of lasting significance. The Nazca didn't separate art from life, religion from agriculture, or science from spirituality. Everything was interconnected, part of a larger cosmic order that they sought to understand and honor through their monumental creations. The trophy head rituals and the ceremonial center at Kawachi reveal another dimension of Nazca sophistication. Here was a society capable of complex social organization, elaborate religious ceremonies, and artistic expression that spanned multiple media. The same culture that created delicate pottery and intricate textiles also moved massive stones and carved lines visible from space. They were master engineers and visionary artists, practical farmers and mystical shamans. Their water cult practices remind us of humanity's eternal relationship with the forces that sustain life. In the hyper-arid Nazca Desert, where rainfall amounts to mere minutes per year, water wasn't just precious, it was sacred. The elaborate underground aqueduct systems, some still functioning today, represent engineering marvels that supported complex urban centers in one of the world's most challenging environments. The geoglyphs themselves may have been massive prayer wheels, rotating in stone and earth, calling down the rains that meant the difference between abundance and catastrophe. What ultimately happened to the Nazca remains one of archaeology's great questions. Climate change, social upheaval, resource depletion. Likely it was a combination of factors that led to the gradual abandonment of their great ceremonial centers. But their disappearance as a distinct culture doesn't diminish their achievement. If anything, it adds poignancy to their story, reminding us that even the most sophisticated civilizations are vulnerable to forces beyond their control. Yet, in another sense, the Nazca never really disappeared. Their lines remain, weathered but recognizable, still capable of inspiring wonder in satellite images and aerial photographs. Their artistic vision lives on in museums around the world. Their engineering principles continue to inform modern understanding of desert agriculture and water management. Most importantly, their audacious belief that human creativity could speak to the cosmos continues to inspire us today. The Nazca lines force us to confront our own relationship with permanence and meaning. In our era of rapid technological change and environmental uncertainty, what messages are we leaving for future generations? What would our geoglyphs look like? Would they be visible from space, or only from the digital clouds that increasingly define our existence? Perhaps the greatest lesson of the Nazca lines is that true communication transcends the boundaries of time, culture, and even comprehension. We may never fully understand why ancient peoples chose to create a killer whale holding a knife, or spent generations maintaining perfectly straight lines across desert terrain. But we don't need complete understanding to feel the power of their achievement. Standing in the observation tower at Nazca, looking out over the seemingly empty desert that contains such wonders, visitors often report a profound shift in perspective. The landscape seems to vibrate with invisible meaning. The wind carries whispers of ancient ceremonies. The very ground beneath your feet becomes sacred, transformed by the knowledge that every step might cross lines drawn by human hands 15 centuries ago. This transformation of perception is perhaps the Nazca's greatest gift to us. They remind us that the world is full of hidden meanings, that ordinary landscapes can be transformed into extraordinary statements through human vision and dedication. They challenge us to look beyond the immediate and obvious, to consider perspectives both grander and more intimate than our daily concerns. The recent technological advances that have revealed hundreds of new geoglyphs also point toward exciting possibilities for future discovery. With each new survey, each improved algorithm, we uncover more pieces of the Nazca puzzle. But technology alone cannot decode the deeper meanings embedded in these ancient works. That requires something more elusive: imagination, empathy, and a willingness to sit with mystery. rather than demanding immediate answers. The Nazca lines exist in the space between the known and unknowable, between human and divine, between earth and sky. They are bridges across time, connecting us to ancestors whose names we'll never know, but whose creativity continues to astonish us. In an age of increasing digital mediation, they remind us of the power of physical presence, of art that exists in real space and geological time. As we conclude our exploration of these remarkable geoglyphs, we're left not with closure, but with invitation. The Nazca lines invite us to expand our conception of human possibility, to imagine what we might accomplish if we thought in terms of centuries rather than quarters, if we created for the cosmos rather than just for ourselves. They challenge us to consider what messages we're writing on the landscape of the world, what lines we're drawing through our choices and actions. In our interconnected age, every decision ripples outward like the straight lines radiating from Nazca, affecting systems and communities far beyond our immediate perception. The killer whale with a knife, the hummingbird frozen in eternal flight, the spider web of geometric precision. These images have outlasted the civilization that created them. They speak to something fundamental in human nature, the need to make meaning, to transform raw material into significance, to leave marks that say, we were here, we mattered, we dreamed of something greater than ourselves. In the end, the Nazca lines are not just archaeological artifacts or tourist attractions. They are mirrors, reflecting back our own deepest aspirations and anxieties. They ask us what we're willing to dedicate our lives to creating, what visions we're brave enough to inscribe on the world, what messages we want to send echoing across the centuries. The ancient Nazca chose to speak in lines and figures, in astronomical alignments and ritual pathways. Their medium was the earth itself, their canvas the intersection of desert and sky. Their message, transmitted across 15 centuries of silence, reaches us still, that human creativity is capable of touching the divine, that art can transform landscape into meaning, and that some achievements are so profound they reshape our understanding of what it means to be human. As the sun sets over the Nazca Desert, casting long shadows that reveal the subtle variations in the landscape where ancient lines cross modern roads, we're reminded that the conversation between past and present never really ends. The lines continue to speak, and we continue to listen, participants in a dialogue that began with the first human who looked at the earth and saw not just ground to walk on, but a canvas waiting for their vision. The mystery of the Nazca lines isn't a problem to be solved, but a gift to be treasured. A reminder that the world contains wonders beyond our current understanding, and that the human capacity for creating meaning and beauty knows no bounds. In their silence, they speak volumes. In their permanence, they teach us about the power of dreaming beyond our lifetimes. And in their mystery, they invite us to become part of their story, to add our own lines to the great human conversation with the cosmos that began in the Nazca Desert over 1,500 years ago and continues with each person who stands in wonder before their ancient magnificence.